And it's called The Python and the Lizard. And the story kind of starts like this. Many, many years ago, in a time when time was young and animals could talk and often had their own village, and drums were very, very rare. There were two who lived in the village, Brother Python and Brother Lizard. Now, no one ever questioned the fact that Brother Python, when they would have a festival or a feast, Brother Python would come and he would dance. And man, could he dance. He would dance and dance and dance. And Brother Lizard was no doubt the greatest singer. And he would sing and sing and sing. And they would often play the drum for each other. Now, people often take sides. Do you know people who will take sides and they'll try to put them together? Who sings better? Who dances better? But there was no argument. They were best of friends. And they knew, hey, I don't argue that you're a better singer than me. You know, I don't argue that you're a better dancer than me. And they were fine. But when it came down to the drum, they were both pretty close to equal. Now, the drum belonged to Python. And Python was very careful with his drum because they were so very rare. But he would let his friend Lizard borrow the drum. And though they never even fought, it didn't matter who was better with the drum because they enjoyed themselves. Well, one day they were traveling, having a good time, and there was a feast in their home village. And they got together and one would start drumming. And the other started to sing and dance. And the festival was having such a great time. Everybody was enjoying. And it was a special festival for there was a king from a distant village who was there. And while he was enjoying the dancing and singing, afterwards he went up to Brother Lizard and says, Brother Lizard, I'd like you to come sing for me at a festival next week. And bring your drum. Now, he didn't know the drum didn't belong to Lizard. He assumed that it was his. And so Lizard began to think, he says, oh, I can't wait to go, but I can't ask Python to let me take his drum over to another village. He won't only let me borrow the drum and to take it out of town. No, it won't happen. I know what I'll do, he says. I won't tell him that I'm taking it out of town. So he goes over to Brother Python's house and he knocks on the door and says, Brother Python, can I borrow your drum to practice for 3 days? And Python thinks about it for a minute and he says, sure, my friend. And he gives him the drum. And he goes home and Lizard heads out on his journey. When he gets out there, he begins to sing and dance at the festivals for this king. The people were having a good time. They were all just dancing and having a party. Can you say party?
Party.
Now, there's a difference between a party and a party.
Yes, there is.
You know, a party, you have to have your pinky up when you... But a party, you just get loose and have a good time. And they were having a party. Say it again. Party. And they partied, and he played that drum, and he danced. And the king was so impressed. And when a jolly or a performer comes, and they gave him food, they gave him chickens, they gave him mules, they gave him just all sorts of stuff. And he was so good that he stayed not just 3 days. He stayed 5 days. Well, at the third day, Brother Python was wondering what was going on, so he slithers over to Lizard's house and he knocks on the door. And he asked to speak to his friend, and the wife answers, and she's also good friends with Python's wife, so she wasn't going to tell a lie. Well, he's gone over to the other village, and he's out there performing. And he took your drum with him. Oh, he was so hurt. Python says, my good friend had deceived me. So he slithers himself back home. And he's just hurt. Well, after 5 days, the party was so good, they had him stay another 3 days. But when it was all said and done, he comes home with all the stuff that he brought. And when he gets home, he says, "Wife, come look at everything that I've gotten." Well, you know, all she wanted to do was fuss at him for being wrong and a bad friend. "I can't believe you did that to your friend. And you took you took his drum." And he started thinking and says, have you ever met somebody who felt proud of themselves? He was feeling proud of himself. He said, I think I'm a better drummer anyway. I'm going to keep this drum because it should be mine anyway. Look at all the stuff that I got. Self-pride can be something that really, really will get you down. So word got back to Python that Lizard was back. So he slithers over to his house and knocks on the door. Lizard opens the door and sees Python, and you know what he does? You think he turns around and gives him the drum? Nah. He takes the drum, goes out the back of the hut, and climbs up a tall tree. Python comes and slithers around and recoils himself around the tree and looks up at him and says, "Can I have my drum back?" And there, awfully smug, Lizard looks down and says, "No." Now, Lizard knows what he's done is wrong, but he's gone too far. He's going to have to play this out, he thinks. So he says, "No, I won't give it back." And feeling bad, he decides to hurl insults instead of just saying, "I'm sorry." So he looks and says, "By the way, I'm a better drummer than you are. And think about it. I can drum with my hands. I can drum with my tail. And you can only use your tail. I should have the drum, and I'm going to keep it." The python was so hurt. The whole day, into the night, Lizard beats the drum and sings all these songs so loud, and Python is so frustrated that finally, at the end of the night, he goes home. When he goes home, Lizard comes down and goes into his house, and his wife says, "I can't believe you did that. You're such a mean..." She took a frying pan and threw it at him. She missed. Woo. But he knew it was time to go. So he got back out, climbed back up the tree, and stayed up there the whole night. Well, the next morning, Python finds his way over to the termites. And as he's at the termites love to see him as he would dance. So they asked him to join in a feast. And so he danced, and he played, and he danced, and he danced. And when it was all said and done, the queen of the termites says, "You have done so much. What can we do for you?" And he explained what had happened. Now understand, the early drums were because of the kindness of the termites. They would take a log and they would eat the inside of the log out. And then they would allow someone to cover it with cowhide or other animal skin. And there they had a drum. And he explained what happened to his drum. And he said, "Can I have some of your warriors?" And he said, "Yes." So the warriors in a long line followed the python until they got to the tree. And when they got to the tree, they wrapped around the tree and they began to eat. And they ate, and they ate, and they ate, and they ate, until that tree began to sway and sway. And they ate, and they ate. And then all of a sudden the tree falls into the water. Python goes into the water and he retrieves his drum. But his friend, Lizard, can't swim. And he's in the water and floating away and, help me, and Python looks. And he goes into the water. And slowly and steadily he looks at his old friend and he swims right up to him. And he reaches his body around him and he wraps his body around that lizard. And then he takes his tail and wraps it around the tree. And he begins to lift his old friend out of the water. Now, even the python, with his strength, not trying to, was squeezing so hard on the lizard that he could hardly breathe. It literally knocked his jaw kind of out of socket, and his chin, his neck puffed up and got red. But when he set him down, when he finally got his breath, the lizard says, "I am so sorry. You were such a good friend. Even as I was cruel to you, you still risked your life to save me. And the python forgave him. But from that day to this day, whenever you see a lizard, it's always like he's trying to check his jaw. And if you look down at his throat, it always swells and goes back in, and it has this color red. And now, whenever a lizard goes and gets ready to climb a tree, he always jumps on it first to make sure that no termites had been there. And you know what? Even though they're best of friends, Python never gave his drum again to Lizard. Think about it. When was the last time you saw a lizard in a tree playing a drum? And that's my story.
I have a gray lizard on my porch and a green lizard, but they don't invade each other's territory. And they're always showing their money.